ICS4U, we're going to talk about something called method overloading. And this document will be shared with you. The reference is lesson 6 in the Blue Pelican Java textbook. Something called a method signature. So just as a review, Java, almost everything in Java is comes from a class. And when something comes from a class, it's called an object. So you might have a string class, and maybe you have an object called name, and you have another object called address, and maybe you even have one called last name. You could have several different objects. Every single object from a particular class, they all have the same properties because they're from the same class. A method signature is a way for us to understand, kind of like a blueprint, what to expect from a particular method. So the math class, just like the string class, is available in Java. And there is a particular method in the math class. So any object that is created from the math class has it available to it, and it's called SQRT. I've heard students call it squirt. Square root function. It's the square root function. It takes the square root of something. So whatever is to the left of it is what it returns. So it's going to return a double type variable. What's in the brackets is what you feed into it. Okay, so input is in brackets. That's what you feed into it. You're going to feed in a double called x. It doesn't have to be x. It could be a number. It could be a different variable. But as a placeholder, they're just saying x. And so that's the input. The output type is displayed on the left-hand side. And when you think back to Python, if you've done Python with defs, similar thing ended up happening. Even when you're using, let's say you're using the input method in Python or the scanner method, the output goes to the left side of the equal sign. So going to the left side to see the output is something that should be familiar to you. All right, method overloading is when we take it a step further and we have the same method available for different types. So here's an example, and let's see, what does it say? Method overloading is when two methods have the same name, like min here, you can see, but they accept different type of parameters. So we have a method called min that accepts, the first one accepts 2 integers, and int x, that's just a placeholder, and then int y. So it's going to take in 2 integers. And as you can imagine, min will take these 2 integers and it will return whichever one is smaller, the minimum value in the form of an integer. And you can see that it returns an integer because on the left side it shows int. Remember, this is the signature of the method. This is not code. You can't use this as code in your program. It's just kind of like a blueprint. But you're going to see it a lot in the textbook, and you're going to see it a lot in Java, official Java documentation as well. And even in your IDE, your development, interactive development environment, being IntelliJ or Replit or Visual Studio Code or Eclipse is another one for Java. There's all kinds. You could even use Genie. You will see sometimes something in this format, especially when you're typing it out. And let's say you've created, min is in the math class. So if you make a math object. Now, on the other hand, you can also feed in 2 doubles into min. And Java will be smart enough to understand, oh, okay, you want to use the double version of min. So there are 2 methods in Java called min. One accepts integers, one accepts doubles. If you use the one with integers, it returns an integer. You use the one with doubles, it returns a double. Just so you can see what the code might look like, we're going to create an object from the math class. So math mynum equals, so this is actual Java code now. New math, and then we can say int results equals min 3 4 semicolon, and we have to say mynum.min, because min is a method of a math type object, an object that comes from the math class. So mynum was created from the math class. So these 2 lines here are actual Java code. So you can see it doesn't look like the method signature which is up here when you actually get to Java. The method signature, once again, is like only a blueprint for you to understand how the method operates and how it works. Once you get familiar and you read method signatures a few times, they become very useful. You'll be using them as a reference. It's impossible to remember what every single method takes in as a parameter and what it returns. And you'll be learning new methods. There's so many of them. And sometimes you'll use a method only once over the course of a few months. So it's important to be able to look these up. Getting back to my 2 lines of code, I created a math, an object from the math class. So the math class, it's an object called mynum. That's what the first line does. The second line says store in a result that's an integer whatever the min function of this mynum is. So mynum is a math object. It can calculate the min by using .min. And remember, using dot in Java or C or any other object-oriented language accesses the method or property. We won't get into that though. All right, so try it out and make sure you understand how it works. I'm going to erase these 2 lines. There's 2 different functions internally to Java, overloaded. They do the same thing, but they accept different types. And they're making it easier on us, so we don't have to have a different one called min-int and min-double, because that would be even more of a hassle. So they're making it easier for us by allowing us to overload these methods. And that's just method overloading, something for you to be aware of and be familiar with, and it will be part of your evaluation.